Iran already subject to a naval blockade, thousands of sanctions since 1979. And joining us now is former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Biden administration, Jen Gavito, alongside retired Vice Admiral Robert Harward, who is also a former CENTCOM Deputy Commander. It's great to have you both with us. Commander, I'm going to start with you this morning with the latest that's coming out of Iran. And no breakthroughs. In fact, the latest reporting from Axios would suggest that the U.S. is still even trying to figure out who to talk to. We're asking all of our guests, is this a forever war?
I don't think it's a forever war, but the pressure will be increased on Iran. The negotiations, the MOUs, the ceasefires have gone nowhere, as anything has with Iran in the last 47 years. So in this case, they really go ratchet up the economic sanctions, which is a very sound strategy. So while we've frozen assets, will we seize those assets? Will we go after Chinese banks or helping deals? Will we go after the ghost fleets? There's all sorts of options they can do to increase the pressure on Iran, and I think that's what you're going to see in the next few days.
Jen, come on in on this and weigh in on the same thing that we've been talking about, this idea, this concept of this being a forever war. How do you see it?
So we certainly right now are in what seems to be a stalemate with the maximum pressure campaign on Iran version 2, very similar to what the first Trump administration tried. Certainly is an effective tool, but it's not a strategy in and of itself, nor does it show any sign of changing Iran's calculus in the negotiations. And so while this may not be forever, there certainly doesn't seem to be an off-ramp to it at the moment.
Well, Jen, the story just out from Axios, Barak Ravid reporting that it has been so difficult for U.S. negotiators to determine if they're talking to the right people, if they're in fact talking with actual representatives of the regime. The Trump administration took the very unconventional move to reach out directly to IRGC leadership. Does this not underscore the foundational problem in finding peace?
So, first of all, this assertion that we don't know who we're talking to, there have always been different power centers in Iran. That has always been a challenge, and that continues to be a challenge, even more so today because, of course, we changed that calculus when we decided to eliminate the supreme leader, the former supreme leader. And so this is largely a problem of our own making. But I would note that we have experts that do understand the Iranian regime and how it operates. The Trump administration is not necessarily relying on those people at the moment. But sure, this has gotten more challenging as those competing power centers in this newly constructed regime are jockeying for power and have very different views on whether or not to end this conflict at all.
Admiral, I am curious, and I think in some of the conversations we had yesterday, that ultimately what we need to see is it the president speaking with someone very senior, the leaders in Iran? Like, does it need to get to that level to actually make this war, this conflict, this war come to an end?
Well, I think you're actually going to have to see positive actions from the government of Iran. They're either going to acknowledge that they are agreeing to free flow of commerce through the straits or other demands of the administration. So it's going to take action at this point. I don't think rhetoric is still going anywhere. They're going to have to act and acquiesce on some of these objectives. And that's what no one's seeing. And who can do that may be part of the problem.
You were a Navy SEAL, Admiral, and there's been conversations about seizing Karg Island. There's been conversation about lining the shores of the strait with troops. At some point, will we need men and women on the ground to close the deal here?
Well, I think it's an option. Look, we've already put boots on the ground in Iran. People have lost track of that. We put 200 people on the ground to seize ground and recover our pilots. So I think that's an attractive option that has real impact on the psyche of the regime, but more importantly, to the people of Iran. As the president always said, help is on the way. So putting boots on the ground, not to occupy Iran, but to go in to do a raid, to impact their thinking and logic, and encourage the people inside Iran, I think are part of a broader strategy. And as Jen said, you need a broader strategy here. You saw the CENTCOM commander, Brad Cooper, in the region this week, making rounds to all the GCC partners. So you're seeing the president ratcheting not only economic power, but political power as well. And I think it's going to take that whole of government approach to get the results we're looking for in Iran.
So let's talk about strategies and what might possibly come down, Jen, from U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Maybe it's dealing with the Chinese ties and putting some pressure there. Maybe it's looking at some of Iran's other trading partners, overseas assets, a shadow fleet. There are some different things that are out there. Also, exchange houses, a number of exchange houses in countries such as the UAE that help Iran repatriate funds. What of these do you think could be the thing that finally pushes Iran over the edge?
I personally don't think any.
Oh, Jen, why don't you take it first, then we'll bring you in, Admiral.
I don't think that any of those are going to fundamentally change the Iranian calculus. They are negotiating from a position of power at this point. They believe that they have withstood a tremendous military onslaught, which they have, from two of the largest militaries in the world, and they have emerged intact. And so all of these options on the table will continue to undermine and diminish Iran's economy. And that is, as noted, a very important tool, but it is not in and of itself a strategy. And I don't think that any of them are going to shift Iran's red lines fundamentally. At the end of the day, it is going to be a negotiated solution that allows both sides to save face and to find an off-ramp that are going to end this war. But economic pressure alone has virtually never worked as a kind of comprehensive strategy.
Mm-hmm. Admiral, I want to bring you in here because you have, like Jen, a unique vantage point. You lived in Iran. You have an understanding of maybe where the leaders there are coming from. They're willing to certainly let their people deal some pain or live through some pain, and so obviously could probably let them deal with some more sanctions or economic hardship. Mm-hmm. Having said that, what don't maybe the world at large, maybe what the United States doesn't understand about Iran as a country, about its leadership and how far they're willing to go?
Well, the leadership will go all the way. This is an existential threat to them. And this economic pressure adds to the problems they have. One, to reconstitute and maintain power, their ability to pursue any nuclear power. It has impact on the surrogates they've been funding for decades, the Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis. And you're seeing that empower the government of Lebanon to now reach and talk to Israel to solve that problem. So I think this long-term approach doesn't result in the ending of conflict immediately, but it sure puts Iran, continues to diminish their power and diminish their ability to project power. And more importantly, continues to put the regime at risk immediately and long term. You've got 75 million Iranians who see how the rest of the region and everyone else lives, and they want to live like that, and they can't with this regime, so they want to get rid of them. And I think these steps continue to undermine the regime and drive a potential tipping point. But it needs to be tied again to the political efforts as well. And again, back to the military options. We really need a whole of government approach and synchronizing and tying all these efforts together. And I think that's what the turning point the president and this administration has come to realize.
Well, so Jen, is that the end game? Does it have to come from the people?
Unfortunately, I don't see the circumstances in place at the moment that will enable the millions, tens of millions of Iranian people to rise up and challenge this regime. Mm-hmm. So no, I don't think that that's where this conflict ends in the immediate term. Those conditions cannot be set from the outside. There is no doubt that regime is deeply unpopular inside of Iran, but they don't have the capacity at the moment. There is no unified unifying opposition leader. They don't have the weaponry. None of that exists at the moment. And so I think, if we want an off-ramp to this conflict, what we're looking at in the immediate term is a negotiated solution that gives Iran some degree of economic relief and allows the president to declare victory, noting that Iran's military capabilities have been diminished. But I think that that's the most that we can hope for right now.
I mean, Jen, as you see it and watch this continuing to unfold, the stops, the starts, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I mean, is there really anything that the United States administration or the Trump administration can actually do?
I unfortunately don't think so. I think, again, that Iran is negotiating from a position of power. It understands the enormous strategic tool that it has in the Strait of Hormuz. It will hold on to that at all costs. As the Admiral points out, this is and was for the Iranian regime an existential crisis. And so holding on to the tools that it has are the top priority. That this war has increased the suffering of its people is largely irrelevant to the regime, unfortunately. And so I think where we are today is where we are likely to continue to be until both sides decide that they are willing to make some limited concessions in order to bring it to an end.
Both of you have said, and Joe, we keep hearing it's existential for Iran. I thought also for the United States, the mission was about denuclearization.
That's right.
And we're not even hearing that come up, which I don't know how that fits in or how that helps us get to an end here.
It's devolved around a real standoff just over the strait itself. Admiral, your storied career includes a number of pretty remarkable feats, including reporting back in the first Trump term that the President of the United States offered you the job of National Security Advisor. It was reported that you turned that down for your own reasons, but it gives you unique insight into this group. And I'm wondering your thoughts of some of the, as a Navy man, some of the headlines that we've been seeing recently with the President ordering steam catapults to go back onto our aircraft carriers, and a report today in the Washington Post that he wants warships to be redesigned so they look more like ships from World War II. Is this how we should be spending our money?
Well, I would tell you, we're going through an unprecedented change in warfare. If you look what the United States has done for the last 4 decades, we've invested heavily in aircraft carriers, air jets, and yet you've seen 2 countries, Ukraine, and you're watching Iran, who have no air power, but masses of drones and the ability to strike anywhere at any time, change the dynamics of warfare. So you're seeing that right now. And that's one of the challenges the Department of War has to contend right now. If you have these countries who are operating with a fraction of the resources we have, able to hold off the 2 world's premier superpowers, then we've got to readjust and think how we're going to fight the wars of the future. And I'm compelled to think that drones and what you're seeing, how they've leveraged these cost-effective, some supplied by Russia, some self-built, some support coming from China, are going to be a primary element of warfare in the future. And so the Department of War's got to work and realign with those objectives going forward.
Sounds like a no on the steam catapults.